What's up, fam? Smash the like button for the algorithm and let's get started with the story. Often, when a person is in danger, he turns to God, and it does not matter which one, as is the case now in the counting of votes in the light of God's case. While his fate is being decided, he thinks only of the one he worships, praying only for his salvation. But what about when the accused is a hero who is God and who is in need of help himself? As Le Changzang continues to ponder this, he suddenly finds himself lying on the grass. That means the jury's votes have been counted, and the appropriate decision for his divine punishment has already been made. Still lying on the grass, Li Chang's whereabouts, confidently believing that he was destroyed by accepting death in another universe system, since he can't get back in due to system failure and malfunction. And since that's the case, his divine powers and status have been revoked. But in that case, why does Le Changzang remain conscious of his memories? Suddenly, on the horizon, the hero sees a raft approaching with people sitting in it. At that moment, a man with a huge scroll behind his back appears before him and starts reading out information that pertains to him, including his parents' names, place, and date of birth. The hero silently continues to listen to what the scroll says, and the stranger continues how getting to Arcadia and reaching the heights of Li Chang's took the lives of many gods, for which he was caught and sentenced to punishment. Yes, the stranger was not mistaken about Le Changzang. At this time, Li Chang thinks of nothing better to do than to decide to attack the stranger who knows so much about him. Reaching out his hand, Li Changzang swiftly tries to grab the stranger but just barely misses touching his face. Li Changzang's hand misses and grabs the air. The stranger manages to bounce back to avoid the takedown. At this time, our hero sees the stranger appear above him, in parallel, drawing his sword. Li Chang's sober assessment of the situation doesn't stop him from trying to reach for it. After all, our hero is determined to keep fighting. The stranger suddenly, Li Changzang swings around to strike the stranger. Li Changzang's blow hits the stranger's sword and is so strong that it knocks the scroll out of his hands. The confrontation between the two sides causes a strong surge of water that throws the opposing sides off. As a consequence, the stranger is confused about what is happening. Our hero is also as surprised by what happened as his opponent, but the fight continues nonetheless, and Li Changzang is the next to strike, a result not expected by the man who arrived on the raft. The impact throws them off in different directions, forming a wall of water between him and our hero. In a flurry of struggle, the stranger manages to hang on by landing on the edge of the raft. Thinking that Li Changzang is finished, the stranger is extremely surprised by what he sees in front of him through the water wall. Li Chang comes out to meet the stranger. On the face of the protagonist reads anger and rage towards his enemy. He is determined to continue the resulting clash to clarify the situation. Suddenly, Li Chang sees the shackles that restrained him at the jury deliberations when the verdict was handed down, and despite all the art of the deity, they are able to turn man into a primitive creature, which is how the hero feels. So, being in a desperate situation, he decides to find out the identity of the stranger who arrived. As it turns out, he is facing the Reaper of the underworld, Yul, and the place where they are is the afterlife where the river Styx flows. The protagonist, who previously believed that after the divine judgment, he would be inevitably destroyed, is confused that he has passed into the afterlife. Also from Yul, he learns what was originally under their control, so the Reaper offers the hero to follow him to meet the one who redirected him to the afterlife and give all explanations. The information Li Changzang has received is questionable, more questions than answers. However, having decided to go with Yul, the hero learns that Arcadia, to which he was mistakenly redirected, is significantly different from his home planet. On it, people live the amount of time they have been given and their fate is written in a book called the Book of Life and Death, and that this book can only have validity where it was written. But Li Changzang again can't understand how all of this affects him. Yul further explains that his record disappeared and because Li Changzang went to Arcadia, he was hard to find. What's more, Li Changzang became a god there and managed to make a serious mess. They had to lose a lot of things to find him. From what was said, Li Changzang still remains incomprehensible, and he begins to remember how, walking down the street, he saw the fiery gates that diverge in different directions. At that moment, fear and terror gripped him, and it is clearly readable in his eyes. But after coming to his senses, Li Chang still tries to find out why they didn't let him disappear in Arcadia. As the conversation continues, Li Changzang doesn't get an answer to his question because Yul is just the executor of someone else's instructions, and that lord is none other than Mr. Thanos himself. He is the current lord of the underworld and head of Tartarus and Erebus. At the end of the story, Li Changzang and his companions find themselves in front of the castle entrance staircase, where there is a line of people. To shorten the journey, Yul offers Li Changzang his escort, and they begin to be transported past the entrance, and all those people they saw in the beginning. Along the way, Yul tells our hero what lies beneath them. The first is a fire pit with people in the hell of the fire pit. Next comes a pit covered in ice where human silhouettes are frozen. This pit is called glacial hell. Next, non-humans shrouded in blocks of stone appear in front of them. From what Lichangzang saw, he's surprised that they're not like the others. Who were they? He asks, to which he receives a remark from Yul about his line of work before he became a criminal. The protagonist is interested in what he has heard and what the Reaper is leading up to, as Lichang's son learns these are the fallen gods that Thanos sealed as evil gods. It's worth admitting that Lichangzang didn't know about this before. However, as you pointed out, Lichang's would not have spread the word knowing that it would affect his heavenly reputation. Yul continues his story, that those people who are less sinful are subject to hard labor. Bypassing all the circles, Lichangzang and you are transported to their final destination and stand before the gates of entrance where their lord awaits them. The Reaper presents the king with the one he had to leave, for it is the light of the gods. Just as Yul finished his report, a gate opens in front of them, and a voice from within calls out to them, inviting them to come to him. But Lichang feels constrained by the oppressive environment around him because there are two eyes looking at him without any outline. The protagonist is utterly bewildered by what he sees and hears. It's probably going to be a lot of fun, flashed through Lichang's mind. When the darkness cleared, Lichang's saw a man sitting on a throne in front of him. This phenomenon did not make Lichangzang very excited, it's probably the opposite. Suddenly, whoever was sitting on the throne started addressing him, and before continuing, the Lord decided to ask the hero a question that concerned him directly. What awaits our hero after death? But Lichangzang wasn't ready to give an answer right now because he had never thought about it. The Lord didn't take long to give Lichangzang his specific answer. Hell. This answer did not please Lichangzang and required clarification, upon which the Lord began to recount the chronology of events that began on June 21, 2024. It all starts with Lichang going off on his partner and driving him into tears, from which followed a question to the Reaper as to what punishment should be inflicted on our hero for such treatment. Naturally, Lichangzang goes to hell, where he is deprived of his tongue for 15 days. The following situation concerns Lichangzang being busy playing the game, and not helping a friend who needs him. The punishment is being sent to the Mountain of Knives for a crushed ant. The hero goes to poisonous snake hell for 4 days, and for a dog, 10 days without a tongue, and for never once taking a girl's hand, 6 days of twilight. Finally, Lichangzang can't stand it anymore and starts yelling to find out who they are and what right they have to insult him like that. In response, Lichang only gets a dismissive look without any explanation. As it turns out, Lichangzang finds out that he's just a joke and nothing more. At this time, the Lord takes the scroll that Yul had and begins to go over it. Based on what he has written, he gives his verdict on Lichang's ruthlessness, and since that's the case, Lichangzang has a fair question about the meaning of his rescue. Then, as if in response to him, Thanatos offers Lichangzang a deal for a favor the hero can do because there are some gods who break their vows to come to Earth, and Lichang needs to find them by going to the human world. But doesn't that mean Lichangzang will be reborn as an ordinary person, forgetting that its original location is Earth? Therefore, it will simply go where it is supposed to be. With a wave of his hand, Thanos presents Lichangzang with a parade of planets that appear before our hero in all their splendor and power. The protagonist is surprised and quite amazed at what he sees before him, but only one planet evokes those unique emotions in him like no other, and this is planet Earth, the place he was originally destined to be. Forgetting that he is not alone, Lichangzang hears the sarcastic ridicule of his sentimentality. Lichang is not confused and explains the reason for his behavior by saying that Earth is his home and therefore his feelings should be understood. But continuing his mockery, Thanos says that there's something else for Lichangzang to be amazed about. In anticipation, Lichang waits to see what else the Lord has in store for him, and then he sees his planet in front of him at a larger size than it was a little while ago. The scale on the plan begins to zoom in to describe the outline of the mainland, which, as they get closer, begins to loom into some sort of city, gradually transitioning to a street lit by streetlights with the tops of houses on either side. Lichangzang is walking down this street with a bottle in his hand and his head down, and then something unknown catches his attention, causing him to be distracted from his thoughts. What he sees in front of him, it causes him to fear and not understand what is happening. But it can't be these memories. How can it be possible? Lichang is actually still in the castle of the Lord of the Underworld. Answering his question, Thanos decides to send our hero to Earth, where Lichang's mission is to find the gods who broke their vows. However, Lichangzang still cannot understand why this job is assigned to him as his sentence, to which the Lord explains that Lechon Sung is the one who can handle such a task. He has to find the many gods of Arcadia, including Aura, D, Va, and Chun, because they have compromised the integrity of the entrance to the underworld. That's exactly what the hero saw walking down the street on Earth. The protagonist begins to guess that, having broken their oaths, the gods are trying to get to Earth through the gap formed. The Lord confirms the hero's words. However, Lechon Sung wonders why the underworld is doing nothing to stop them. To this, he receives Thanos' reply about the omniscience of what the oath says. However, it is only human beings who can go to the other world, and the oath contains no mention of such restrictions for the gods. Then, Lechon Sung begins to realize that he is just a pawn for the underworld, which will be gotten rid of when the job is over. But Thanos dispels his assumptions by promising that Lechon Sung will be given a new life after completing his correctional labor. But whether it's really true or not, Lechon Sung can't believe what he's hearing. Thanos, without losing the thread of the conversation, begins to bring our hero to the conclusion of the deal. He's trying to interest Lechon Sung by giving him some powers. The protagonist, having heard what was said, tries to find out in more detail what he has promised, and what his power will be. Without waiting for an answer, Thanos offers Lechon Sung the power of power. The protagonist is under the impression of what he hears, and he is not entirely sure that's possible without violating the rules prescribed for the underworld. Thanos replies that this is within his authority, and that it's some kind of gift he's giving Lechon Sung in the event of a deal. Hearing this, Lechon Sung is very happy that he will have such abilities, and thus there is no reason to delay the deal. So, in such a case, the deal is considered concluded, and the contract is signed. Here, the Lord of the Underworld proclaims the beginning of Lechon Sung's reincarnation, and Lechon Sung is preparing to enter the gate called the Gate of Rebirth. However, upon entering the Gate of Rebirth, Lechon will lose all of his deity and turn into a regular person who has to start over without any powers. Listening to Yule, Lechon Sung assures him that he will mean what he says. However, he can no longer tolerate what Yule is saying, trying to give him the latest clarification regarding his powers. Having finished his instructions, Yule escorts our hero to the gate where his sentence begins. Still sitting in the boat, Lechon Sung finally sees them in front of him. Without much thought, he jumps to the gate to begin his rebirth sooner rather than later. Once in front of them on the cliff, Lechon Sung sees their doors open, but before stepping into them, Lechon Sung still decides to say goodbye. In turn, the Reaper tries to give his final parting words, but Lechon Sung doesn't listen to him and flies to the place where his sentence begins as an ordinary man. Yule is standing at the door, looking after Lechon Sung. He is now a Reaper of the underworld to whom the Lord has granted power. Lechon Sung is still continuing his flight, leaving the Reaper and the entire underworld behind him. Finally, he hears that the rebirth gate has been successfully passed, and there is a system update that tries to connect to the new server. Through the flight, Lechon Sung hears that he has been assigned the title of administrator. Suddenly, he lands on the grass, which means he's already made it to his destination. Lying on the grass, Lechon Sung sees people gathered around him who are confused by what they have just seen. Our hero, continuing to lie there, notes to himself that all the memories of his past life have been restored to the smallest detail, and around him, the anxious cries of passers-by still echo through the screaming and panic. Lechon Sung hears a girl speaking in his native language. Finally, he's home. Finally, he's back, Lechon Sung thinks. Opening his eyes, Lechon Sung tries to assess the situation around him. Rising to his feet, he sees the people in front of him in fear and equally confused, and he's one of the few people who ended up in an unknown place out of choice, in a place located in the center of an impenetrable forest and bounded by a blue border. At this moment, Lechon Sung recalls the words that were previously spoken by Thanos during our hero's stay in the underworld. When Lechon Sung passes through the gate, he will enter a place that is both Earth and not, for the reason that you can't enter another world unnoticed. It's only fair that Lechon Sung questions where he's going to end up, and this place will be chosen when Lechon Sung passes through a random rift. While Lechon Sung is remembering this, the people around him start to panic from the realization that they are in a foreign place where there is no connection, and that place is the Rosewood Garden. Participants is 431, however, there was an error in counting, and together with our hero, their number increased to 432. Finally, the trials begin, in which participants will be categorized into difficulty levels based on their individual abilities. The first mission is to defeat the monsters hiding in the forest, divided into 5 sections using different methods. The outcome is to be on top of the mountain. All participants can use their status skills and have access to inventory, but before you start, you should familiarize yourself with the rules. Not wanting to waste time, Lechon Sung runs to the first section, not even hearing what the contestants left behind are trying to shout to him. After breaking away from them, Lee Chang-sung rushes to fulfill his mission. Is it possible? He's a player, as it all looks very familiar from the outside. And if he is, then isn't he the character with the nickname Tyrant? While still running, Lee Chang-sung starts to worry that his stamina isn't that good since he's running so low. He's already panting. But before proceeding, he should refer to the system window to check his status. However, the system window has not yet been updated to provide access to all of the hero's information. This confirms his hunch, but where is the promised power? After a bit of waiting, he learns that he has the power to suck out souls using the Executioner Sword while having the right to use the Flames of Purgatory. The best part is that after defeating the monster, Lee Chang-sung can take his experience by taking his soul, and his abilities will help him avoid exhaustion and heal from his injuries. While the Executioner Sword will help him harness the power of the gods to punish criminals, that is purely theoretical. Lee Chang-sung will become omnipotent and omniscient if he wins, which means Thanos didn't cheat him out of his power, probably because Thanatos doesn't like the gods of other worlds. On reflection, Lee Chang-sung is sure that the Executioner Sword is probably not that easy to use. Of course, the sword is much better than the soul-sucking skill, but in order for it to be used, you need the opponent to be someone who completely breaks the oath, and there's a chance that in the confrontation, Lee Chang-sung will be seriously injured while defeating the criminal. What comes next in this reflection? Lee Chang-sung sees his enemy. His first opponent is a huge black snake called the Black Mamba. With its huge mouth open, it launches an attack on Lee Chang-sung, but anticipating a quick victory, Lee Chang-sung pulls out a rusty dagger and launches an attack. Striking a sharp blow with his rusty dagger, he slashes the serpent in one fell swoop. The serpent has been struck, and Lee Chang-sung has victory in his hands. With victory, Lee Chang-sung raises his skill in the rusty dagger technique, arousing the interest of the deity called Hunting Season. Our hero is pleased with himself and the outcome of the battle that ended in his favor. He will surely be better than all the others, and they will be afraid of him. After all, it is fear that can provide the opportunity to start a new life. The same goes for the gods and stars, who, upon completion of AD mission, have the right to choose a cleric to spread their teachings because they are the ones who elect the preachers who carry their will to the people. So, huge crowds descend into the dungeon to try their luck and get the power that the gods and stars give, but only a few are lucky enough to get the divine attention, and the rest die without receiving it. Because to the gods, beings condemned to death are of no interest, and only those who meet the requirements are so honored. Or if only they can show that they have a special gift, like our hero, who after the successful completion of the fight became interested in the deity called Hunting Season. This deity is a war goddess called Pog, who skillfully uses different types of ammunition for the pleasure of the hunt. But the cherry on the cake is that her mother is Tiamat, the primordial dragon of evil, and it's very surprising that such a person would be interested in Lee Chang-sung so soon. But what would she say after seeing the rusty dagger technique in action? Lee Chang-sung is not failing. The technique that Lee Chang-sung is going to shine with is really interesting, and he'll do his best not to fall flat on his face. But his musings are interrupted by an odor that begins to spread through the forest. Our hero concludes that it's the poison that soaked half the forest, which means that many monsters have already been poisoned by it, and if that's the case, it's time for the next plan. But his thoughts are interrupted by an attack from behind by two black mambas. Without thinking long, Lee Chang-sung uses the snake hunter's jump, which is perfect for this purpose. As Lee Chang-sung sprints, he leaps to deliver a devastating blow to the snakes. For successfully completing the task, Lee Chang-sung receives additional experience points. These experience points raise Lee Chang-sung's level by an order of magnitude, and the rusty dagger technique has success against black mambas. As Lee Chang-sung has no trouble getting rid of the snakes that infest the rosewood forest, in due time his skill improves, and the feel of the battle becomes more accurate. And it's all thanks to the enemies who revive and contribute to Lee Chang-sung's improved concentration in the confrontation. Having notched a string of victories and killed a single black mamba, our hero succeeds in instilling fear in them and is their blood enemy. This is exactly what Lee Chang-sung was going by successfully completing tasks and instilling fear in the snake-like monsters for defeating 100 black mambas. Lee Chang's is promoted higher to the level of black mamba fighter. Our hero is happy with the result he got and the feeling he gets from fighting snakes because he enjoys what he does, whether it's Arcadia or Rosewood. That's why Lee Chang-sung was in the dock. But is it really true, or maybe it's just an unfounded excuse? Maybe the deity is just scared that a mere mortal can stand up to them. In that case, Lee Chang-sung will give them what they fear so much. He will do so despite the initial lack of such intentions. The hero gains a number of victories over black mambas by improving his existing technique and acquiring the skill of a regular dagger, which delights the deity. Not wanting to stop at what he has accomplished, the hero learns that he needs a break to regain his strength and stamina, and he activates the gifted power to suck the souls out of defeated monsters. To do so, Lichang uses the flames of purgatory and takes possession of Black Mamba ashes. As a result, his stamina increases to 5%, and strength is finally restored to continue the fight against the snake-like monsters. Lichang's zeal and good fortune have hunting season confused because it doesn't know what type of hero's abilities should be categorized as. Another hero's victory over the Black Mambas further certifies the deity in his doubt, and only Lichang knows that it's all due to the approval received from Thanatos, and not what the rookies have at the beginning of the mission, as the deity thinks. But even if it had guessed, it would not have intervened to avoid violating the principle of causation. To find out the newcomer's data in such musings, Lichang tries to catch his breath after gaining victory and preparing for the next fight. He confidently believes that he does not care if the data about him becomes known because Lichang is under the protection of the underworld. Otherwise, everything would have been revealed by now. Finally, defeating the last Mamba, the hero opens the system window and sees that his power stats have increased and he can use skills, and his abilities are increasing. Lichang's interest in Pag, which is a good sign. Now we have to earn his favor with our achievements, and to do that, Lichang needs to fight a red and bloody Mamba. Since Lichang has a resistance to poison, even if it's not strong, the victory should be quick. But it's worth bearing in mind that the Blood Mamba stands at the head of all available Mambas and is a danger to even high-level beginners. However, that doesn't scare Lichang, and he wants to try to defeat her single-handedly because it is a good attempt to get the attention of the gods. But also, it is not that important. The poisonous fang of the Blood Mamba is especially valuable, as Lichang gets full resistance to poison once he gets it, because it was the lack of resistance to poison and, of course, the numerical superiority of the gods that once struck Lichang and affected the outcome. No matter what, Lichang must get that fang. Thinking about it, Lichang notices that the condition of his first weapon, a rusty dagger, is deteriorating significantly. Of course, this is not surprising since he was defeated by a total of 444 Mambas. Suddenly, Lichang notices a flash in the sky. The object that appears catches his attention, which is a different kind of weapon than a rusty dagger, a weapon for beginners. This weapon is worthy of more attention and detailed consideration. Lichang notices that the weapon contains dragon scales. Such weapons are characteristic of Tiamat. There must be a catch. The hero is right, gifts like this don't just happen. The deity wants to make a bet with him, and if he fails, he'll be sent to the next world. It's as if Lichang is just a toy they're willing to get rid of just for wasting their time. This attitude always makes Lichang hate everything divine. But now is the time to seize the moment because if Lichang wins, he will have a big advantage. That means that once Lichang gets his hands on the weapon, he'll gain incredible strength. So this time too, it's worth making a deal and finding out what Lichang has to do to get his hunter's license. Meanwhile, the rest of the mission is summoned by a certain man, which causes resentment and incomprehension among the people left in the Rosewood clearing. The man shows the assembled people an unopened ID card, according to which he is a junior lieutenant, and is subject to military defense. He is also a C-rank player, and therefore, he must be obeyed, and all his instructions must be carried out. The player's status causes some relief among those gathered in Rosewood. However, they are concerned about the fate of Lichang, who ran away without waiting for anyone when the mission began, and most likely for the sole purpose of making a fortune, one that will exceed the fortune of all those gathered. As it turns out, among the gathered newcomers, there is a person who knows him and knows that Lichang is the leader of ST and a player under the nickname Tyrant, which by its appearance attracts the interest of advertisers and has general publicity. However, having finished his playing activities, he began to drink and disappeared from the posters. Or maybe his disappearance is because he decided to go into the next world. But this statement by someone who knows Lichang so well does not enthuse the audience. Suddenly, in the system window that appears, those present learn that all the snake-like monsters of the dungeon have been destroyed. The information received is perplexing to those gathered. After all, if all the participants of the mission are in a safe zone, who then massacres the monsters? All the snake-like monsters, white worms and blue ravens, are sent to the next world with incredible speed, and Lichang is furious at the epicenter of all events. Not just him, because what happened is unbelievable and raises more questions than answers, especially for a player who knows Lichang so well. Meanwhile, Lichang completes the mission with the subsequent winning of the bet. Upon completion, he receives a hunter's license in a category called Casual Mission. For this, the deity sees the hero as a candidate for the title of priest, also because all the worthy beings are occupied, and it remains to look out for newcomers. But to get it, he has to defeat a bloody mamba in 24 hours. In case of defeat, death. Victory, the fawn of the evil dragon. Is this something urgent, not related to the recent conflict between Tiamat and B. Marduk, the strongest sign of the zodiac and mother of the hunting season? And if that's the case, then Li Changsung will have a lot to gain from the controversy. Besides, there is a point to fight because the evil dragon Fang, obtained at such a high price, has its own characteristics. The more difficult the task, the better for Li Changsung. So, Li Changsung decides to offer the deity different terms of the game, thereby throwing him into confusion. Li Changsung reduces the fight time from 24 hours to 30 minutes, so the new time for Li Changsung to defeat the bloody mamba is only 30 minutes. Such self-confidence delights the deity, and it accepts our hero's proposal. But Li Changsung should keep in mind that if he loses, he will face a painful death. Just at that time, a flash of light appears in Li Changsung's path, from which emerges a huge worm-like, snake-like monster. The monster's power shakes the ground around it, forming giant chasms. Without thinking long, Li Changsung jumps on the monster's back to strike, and this strike should do as much damage as possible to weaken the monster's power. Our hero makes a swift poke with his dagger into the giant's flesh, hooking onto the hilt of his weapon, stripping the monster's body, and then swings again for the final blow. Finally, by cutting off the monster's head, Li Changsung wins an absolute victory, for which he raises his level and adds points to his strength. Before Li Changsung can finish one thing, he notices another flying monster attacking from behind. Without thinking long, Li Changsung defeats him and increases his stamina points. Such luck and ability do not go unnoticed by the other deities, which, in turn, does not go unnoticed by our hero. The bloody mamba, who shows interest in Li Changsung, is no exception. In turn, this strikes the deity of the hunting season, compelled to warn all who are interested in our hero. Li Changsung, in turn, satisfied with the work done, is eager to go to a worthy opponent. Finally reaching the 10th level, Li Changsung is awarded the secret class as a rookie who has surpassed himself in the speed of completing tasks. It makes more sense to reach new heights than to be a spearman from a previous life, and that requires a worthy adversary. For this role, Berserk is perfect. In spite of a strong blow, he loses his mind, but knowing this and taking extra measures, he can be defeated. To finish the deal sooner, despite the fact that defeating this monster can be difficult for players of even the 20th level, and being in anticipation, Li Changsung looks through the system window to select the proposed class. Out of the entire list, Li Changsung is interested in those who are in secret status. Finally, Li Changsung scrolls to the end of the list of suggested classes, expecting to see Berserk, but Li Changsung realizes that he is not among those listed. And yet, the time left to decide is 6 minutes. Meanwhile, the bloody mamba continues to follow our hero, tracking him down among the trees where Li Changsung is forced to hide while deciding on his class choice. But Li Changsung still doesn't understand why Berserk isn't listed. Meanwhile, the class selection is coming to an end, and Li Changsung needs to decide on a class and time to be watched. Without making the deity wait any longer, Li Changsung chooses to become a rune keeper, hoping to increase his fighting ability. And so, there is a change of class. The new class is Rune Keeper. Along with the change of class, Li Changsung's dexterity and magic power increase by 5, and he adds intelligence and willpower. This choice brings amazement to the deity and ridicule to the other gods. Nevertheless, skill class creation runes for beginners, rune engraving for beginners, created. That's just what we need to finish the job in the remaining 4 minutes. Li Changsung adds another 30 additional units to the intelligence statistic and 25 additional units to the will stat. But suddenly, something happens that Li Changsung isn't ready for yet. He is attacked by a bloody mamba, a snake-like monster that has been following our hero for a long time. Li Changsung quickly pulls himself together and tries to escape from her in order to save himself, and with little time to dodge the attack, he jumps away from where the blow is coming from. Finally, there is the activation of the skill, creating runes for beginners, with the probability of increasing success directly proportional to statistics. Pinning his hopes on his battle weapon, Li Changsung prepares to strike, which, thanks to Li Changsung's actions, turns out to be successful. Our hero's battle weapon wounds the snake-like monster, and Li Chang's is remembering a skill his elders taught him in order to put it into practice. By applying finger marks on the martial weapon, Li Changsung activates the skill, Rune Engraving for Beginners. The result of this activation is an engraving on the weapon, which is called the Rune of Explosion. However, the predictability of Li Chang's future actions only makes the laugh. However, it is interested in how Li Chang's knows about runes, having managed to create and engrave them all, thereby increasing his skill level. But inadvertently, Li Chansung uses up all his magic power and reaches a state of decadence. Meanwhile, while Li Chang's is once again attacked by a snake-like monster, the amount of time left is already down to 3 minutes. From the thick of the rosewood forest comes an explosion that signals a clash in progress. The resulting noise and outbursts cause the people in the clearing to take notice. Again, although similar sounds have come from the forest before, this explosion is not like all the others. It is much more powerful, and it makes sense that the visible smoke is causing fear and bewilderment among the people left in their seats. That's when they find out that Li Chang's is engaging in a boss battle, and that boss is none other than the Bloody Mamba himself. But there's no way that Li Chang's has already started the battle with the boss. That's exactly what the remaining players think, and it's likely that Li Chang's has the intention to ruin them all because he does what he wants in games too, without regard for the opinions of other players. Eventually, something must be done to stop this lawlessness before it's too late, or the ultimate outcome for all will be the inevitable departure to another world. However, despite the panic of a man who knows our hero well, the sheriff has a different opinion. Staying where he is and doing nothing is not part of his plan, but what's happening in the sky right now gives some hope to the people. It's more likely that the flashes in the sky are indicative of a critical strike. With the number of outbreaks increasing exponentially, it's possible that the remaining players don't appreciate Li Chang's abilities, which inspires hope for their salvation. But what the sheriff sees so far doesn't give him a sure explanation. Meanwhile, the number of flashes in the sky continues to increase, and at this minute, the resistance continues against the monster, with Li Chang's delivering blow after blow. He seems obsessed and addicted to the ongoing confrontation, which causes a huge flare-up to form between the two. This resistance forms an explosion signaling the end of the battle, and that's how Li Chang successfully defeats the first boss, Bloody Mamba. Players witness the passage of the first section called Mission Dungeon Mastering, where the belt rating will be summarized in due time. Li Chansung receives awards to be given out according to achievements and position in the rankings, where he is ranked first, and perhaps Li Chang's will witness the birth of one of the 10 kings. Meanwhile, Bloody Mamba is shown among the trees to the remaining players in the clearing. Of course, no one expects that, because judging by the flashbacks, she should be finished. But opening its jaws, the Bloody Mamba tries to make its move, and judging by the current situation, that's the last thing the remaining players see. But something starts to go wrong, someone stops her, and it's none other than Li Chang's, who doesn't hesitate to deliver a devastating blow to her. This act cannot go unnoticed by the players, making Li Chang's very tense. He doesn't expect such a reaction, so to lighten the mood, he asks them what they are. From the lieutenant's words, he finally figures out that there are players in front of him and, to waste no time, orders them to take care of the weaker gods while he decides to take on bigger fish. But he doesn't expect to hear that he wants to be taken care of. However, knowing that he is not welcome here, he decides to leave with his prey, leaving the players to ponder whether he's really a tyrant or a demon. But if he was a demon, he'd be gone by now. This kind of thinking and talking at length about Li Chang's angers a player who knows him so well. Meanwhile, Li Chang's, after hearing the last words about him, reflects on what was said. After all, he wasn't used to hearing such treatment for himself. Having settled down with his prey, he decides to take a break using the time allotted to him before the opening of the second section, and at the same time, he needs to engrave another rune, the rune of obstruction. After performing all the manipulation, Li Chansung receives information about increasing his skill level. At this point, the beginner rune creation skill reaches its maximum, and the continuing rune creation skill becomes available. But first, the rewards have to be sorted out. However, Li Chansung decides to stay with the Dragon Fang for now, therefore, the choice is quite predictable, and the number of achievement points becomes 15,000. Since we should not forget that in the world of men and gods, all decide money, and therefore you need to prepare for the opening of the game store, the next step is to select the status. Accessing the system window and satisfied with what he sees in front of him, Li Chansung once again makes sure that the fight with the Bloody Mamba has done its job in his favor. Now, the Dragon Fang is his identity, and Li Chansung's persona is already being openly sought after by other gods, which only plays into Li Chansung's hands. As a result, to keep his deity hunting season, he offers him a second gift to choose from. Looking at what is hidden in the dragon treasury, Li Chansung can't make up his mind, as all the treasures are very rare. But in time, Li Chansung decides to keep his intentions to himself, which displeases deity hunting season and sows some doubts about Li Chansung's plotting. However, Li Chansung wishes to further properly utilize his savings that have multiplied after the transfer of the reward. Then, hunting season offers Li Chansung the chance to become a candidate for the priesthood, to which he receives a refusal, and the reward is exchanged for points. Again, looking at the tidy sum of 2,115,000 achievement points, Li Changsung was satisfied with the work done, even if it was thanks to the gods. This, in turn, angers the deity of hunting season because Li Changsung dares to make fun of him, but this fact does not knock Li Changsung out of the rut. He believes in himself and his strength. Such self-confidence and persistence contribute to the interest of Li Changsung even more among the gods, who are anticipating a fascinating spectacle. If the conflict between Bel Marduk and Tiamat is confirmed, the latter will need more prominent personalities. At this time, the deity of hunting season, having changed his mind about Li Changsung, turns his gaze back to him. So Li Changsung is on the right track, as everything is working out as he planned. It's time to move on to the next step, and without thinking long, Li Changsung is already preparing for the next step. It's time to take full advantage of the monster's loot, and Li Changsung takes the bloody mamba's blood, 10 and 5 pieces and 2 eyes. While the other players are chilling in the clearing, the number of gods interested in Li Changsung increases by leaps and bounds, especially after the rejection. However, not all players are happy with Li Changsung's status and success. Someone who knows Li Changsung well thinks he could probably replicate his accomplishments too, but you have to be a current player to do that. After all, if Li Changsung, who has a reputation as a drunkard, can do it, why can't he? All he has to do is try, and if he unleashes his talents, he can shine, and God's message will be able to prove to everyone and show what he can do. As soon as Chong Chun-jae said this, the deity, Al, piercing through the dim light, began to show interest in him. Immediately, a huge flash of spreading light appears in the sky. This flash indicates that an administrator has entered, and it is a run of such force that it throws off the people who are in the area of impact. Now, amidst the smoke and ashes, the outline of that very same administrator appears, who is none other than the Herald Bunny posing as a KR channel administrator. Before he could introduce himself to the surprised players who hadn't met him before, the KR channel administrator starts scrolling through his huge pocket watch. This performance further begins to baffle the players, and the Herald Rabbit, as if mocking them, still keeps referring to his watch. He explains that his coming to the humans is due to an event. Suddenly, the lieutenant starts remembering something he's seen before, and the Herald Rabbit continues that his arrival is due to non-interference rules spelled out in administrative office policy. But in view of the fact that there is a disruption due to a big jump in the rankings, it is angering the management, and so the Herald Rabbit needs intervention to adjust the difficulty of completing the mission. The incoming information makes a huge impression on the players, but without paying any attention to the humans, the Herald Rabbit takes the safe zone out of the clearing where the players are. This means that along with the destruction of the safe zone, the aggressiveness of the monsters will also be increased. But it wasn't supposed to happen. Not one member of the mission was prepared for that, no one but a lieutenant who once had such a selection process. He witnessed this selection and saw everything with his own eyes when a huge number of people were sent to the other side of the world without being selected, and only the lieutenant survived among a bunch of players who didn't make it. Yes, history repeats itself now as it did then. Players have to pass the selection process so that the gods can see if there are any capable players among the newcomers, and the lieutenant may once again witness people falling prey to the amusement of the gods. But do the gods really believe in his potential to put him to such a test? Over all these thoughts and events, Li Changsung appears in the clearing. According to the rules, players can team up to fend off hungry predators and collect crystals. The countdown is on. At this time, the Herald Rabbit turns to Lieutenant Park Ha-sung. However, the lieutenant is in utter amazement that the Herald knows him. Immediately, with the answer he receives an explanation that the Administrative Bureau is interested in him because last time he stayed alive in the dragon's lair. If that's the case, may Park Ha-sung be lucky this time. The countdown ends, and the disappearance of the Herald signaled the start of the game. More precisely, it was the evidence of the beginning of the second stage, which is marked by the appearance of three-headed battle monsters beginning their assault on players. This suddenness catches the players off guard, each making chaotic actions in turn. Young Yun-jae decides to turn the situation in his favor because this is his chance to take a chance and start to prove himself, and the owl deity piercing the dim light promotes his good fortune, thus showing favor to Jang Chun-jae. Meanwhile, Lechang is extracting the black mamba's poisonous fang. It is the fang that will help Lechang gain resistance to the poison. During all this activity, Lechang lets the second stage begin, and the gods begin to argue about Lechang-sung. Yes, the start has been made, and selection amongst the players is beginning, but Lechang-sung is sure he has plenty of time, and his cutback may be due to the dispute he won with Publ Lazag. It is likely that this situation will again play into the hands of Li Chang's, as his further actions cause interest and controversy among the gods. But what Li Changsung gets from the system window is not what he expects, because his stamina is lower due to the lack of time to rest. In the meantime, a fire lizard begins to accompany him. However, what he used in the first stage doesn't work in the second stage against this monster, because the first stage uses poison against living organisms, while the fire lizard is in front of him. Since that's the case, the type of poison will change from ice and metal and eventually get to corporeal. Thus, Lechang must win against the fire lizard, and without a moment's hesitation, Lechang strikes with his dagger. The fire flash indicates that victory is on Li Chang's side, and the fire energy will be extracted. The hero continues to strike the fire lizard, releasing clusters of energy time after time. Li Chang continues to strip the fire beast, who, despite the beatings, continues to resist. The fire energy released is so strong that it throws Li Chang off, but the fire lizard is fighting harder and harder for its life, spewing out streams of fire. However, Li Chang, in turn, continues to strike with his dagger, delivering final blows to the body of the fire lizard. In the end, in this fight, the fire monster is defeated. The fiery beast lost its head and went to the other world in puffs of fire. Lechang, standing on the defeated enemy, celebrates another victory. But you've got to hand it to the fire lizard. Its stamina is far greater than that of the black mamba, which means it would be harder to defeat any of them. But it's necessary to finally finish the case that Li Chang started. Penetrating the flesh of the fire beast, Li Chang retrieves the fireball. To utilize the energy to its fullest, Li Chang swallows a fireball, and the system window starts to notify that Li Chang's song is getting weak but gains resistance to fire and 20,000 units of fire energy. In trying it out, Li Chang's song spews flames of fire, but it's not enough to gain poison resistance to obtain more fireballs, which is nothing less than 8 trigrons of thermal energy. To achieve it, Li Chang's throws himself at whole clusters of fire lizards because resistance to poison is the unique ability of Ant's longtime enemy, Li Chang's. Its uniqueness allows you to be immune to all poisons and additionally creates its own poison to infect the blood. Yes, Li Chang's had every chance to defeat his worst enemy, Anaris, if it weren't for the curse of Gaia that led to Li Chang's defeat and the destruction of his divine status. Instead of going to the other side of the world, Li Chang's manages to get to Thanatos, the ruler of the underworld, through which he learns everything he can about a secret art called Fallen Stars. It is this knowledge that he needs to challenge nearly all 12 constellations, who, in turn, have many enemies among the fallen stars condemned and sent to the underworld. The fallen stars, a.k.a. the 12 elders, are happy to share their knowledge with Lechang, which Lechang skillfully uses in confronting the monsters. It is precisely the shortcut to obtaining resistance to poison that becomes the first knowledge put into practice. All of this is because Ants caused one fallen star to lose her child, her daughter, and since she was the first to share her knowledge, she holds the title of First Elder. Li Chang-su, once again defeating the monsters, continues to absorb the fireballs of energy, deciding through the eruption of flames to check the level of energy earned. However, it's not enough for Li Chang-sung to light the trigram. To do so, he must defeat the stronger and more stubborn monsters. Meanwhile, Young Chun Jae continues to assert himself and reveals himself as a player puffing with rage, the one who can defeat a giant fire lizard and emerge victorious. If that's the case, then Young Jun Jae has all the chances to surpass Li Chang-sung and show his skill in battles. But looking at the system window, Young Chun Jae sees that being in second place to Park Ha, he is far behind Li Chang's. This fact perplexes Young Jun Jae, and Li Chang's takes the shortened path. To catch up with his enemy, Jang Chun-ji asks the patron for more strength and a clue for a shortcut, to which he receives an affirmative answer from the deity. While the other players try to recover from the battle, most likely this world belongs only to special people. Weak people have nothing to do here. Most likely, the fatigue of fighting monsters that last 3 days contributes to the envy of other players who have achieved incredible success. Just at that time, Young Chun is notified that he's getting a new player skill that will help not only him, but the other players survive. Suddenly, the next monster appears, a fiery dog head with horns. Since it's the Mother Queen of the Mountain, at this rate, all the monsters can go to the other side, including her, who is overtaken by Li Chang's with his dagger. But if that's the case, is Li Chang-shung even human? Once again delivering his deadly blow, Li Chang's defeats the maid of the Queen of the Mountain, and the bloody sun indicates that luck is once again favoring Li Chang's song. Li Chang's gets another fireball to add to his collection. Having absorbed it, Li Chang's son decides to continue his journey to complete the mission. Suddenly, his attention is drawn to a sound coming from behind him. This sound is made by a huge brown bear chasing one of the players. This player is the youngest participant available. Before she can recover, she notices a huge dagger striking the brown bear, and her savior is none other than Li Chang's, who happened to be in the neighborhood. Still unable to regain consciousness and unable to see anything around her, the girl continues to scream so Lee Chong-sun can't calm her down. He is bewildered that she is alone in the middle of the woods, but the reason is more than obvious because the other players went to the other world without surviving the ordeal. In their gullibility, they follow young Junji, who later dumps them. At this time, the girl shows on her arm a tattoo of an owl, which guarantees the presence of divine power. But in fact, such a tattoo carries a different meaning. It's the mark of a demon. It indicates that the one who has such a tattoo sells their soul to the demon, and the sign of the owl piercing the dim light looks quite different. He who bears such a brand, after he goes to the next world, gives his soul to the demon and the life force of his assistant. This means that young Jun-jae is getting very strong now, and having that stigma is a very serious thing, no matter how much one might wish to think otherwise. If it is true and it is a demon, it is very majestic and in its power, ranked above even the Demon King. However, the realization of this fact does not frighten Lee Chong-zang at all, unlike the girl. She starts to ask for help and seeks Lee Chong-x's protection. But what choice does Lee Chong-song have? Since she's just a child, and not only did he protect her from the fiery bear, but she's asking him to help her. She's not backing down, she's willing to help out in everyday matters as long as Lee Chang's can help her become stronger. What else is left for Lee Chong-song when the call for help comes from a child willing to do anything for power? Surely she wants revenge for the friends who irrevocably abandoned her, and with nothing better to do, she shares the last piece of chocolate she has with Lee Chang's. However, after refusing the offer, before Lee Chang starts, he finds out from the girl about her abilities, and he needs to check her tag and work on it first. Meanwhile, Young Chun-jae continues to replenish his vitality through the passing of the next players. He grows stronger each time, and his patron rejoices as his power grows. At this moment, young Chun-jae is called out by one of the players who is following him. Annoyed at being distracted, Jang Chun-jae tries to keep his cool. But seeing his attitude and fiery gaze, the player tries to soften the situation. The player is very upset about the tattoo on her arm. It affects him in ways he doesn't expect at all. This tattoo, or even tag, is starting to limit his actions, but his speculation is interrupted by Young Chun-ji's shout. Young Jun-jae no longer wants to tolerate his lethargy, and eventually, someone found what Young Jun-jae asked me to find. However, the player does come to realize that this mark turns them into slaves to Cho-chun, forcing them to run errands. At this time, Jang Chun-jae orders the players to get up as an attack on the boss is planned, and the feeling of hatred overwhelms him for Lee Chong-zang. He will avenge all his suffering. Rage consumes him. Meanwhile, something is happening to the girl who joined Lee Chong-zang. She has an ability she never had before, and that piques the interest of the gods who watch over the rapidly evolving players. The girl activates a skill called Storm Run. This skill works well against zombies by distraction, which means that the rune of captivity is very useful against zombies and successfully acts against them, which are easily destroyed. At least while the girl using the Storm Run skill distracts them, Lee Chang's wields his dagger, sending zombies to the other side. The girl is very good at applying this skill, and it's running away beautifully, which has its positives. Since that's the case, why not apply a captivity rune to her so that the monsters only follow her? The rest is taken care of by Lee Chang's. The girl should only run around distracting the zombies. That's her main function. She can't think of anything else? Zombie Lee Chong-zang is taking over. After all, Lee Chan easily sends them one by one to the other side of the world, and he needs to make sure they're all done. At least the girl is responsible for that, and besides, her job is to collect all the monsters within a 300-meter radius, which she's good at. But that will be enough, as she will not be able to defeat those monsters that will appear, and therefore she needs to run as far away from here as possible. Full of trust in Lee Chong-zang, the girl agrees to his proposal. After seeing the girl off and being left alone, Lee Chong-zang begins to think about what to do next. But his musings are interrupted by a splash of black slurry indicating the monster's approach. That black slurry splashing around so much turns out to be nothing but poison. The next main boss monster to appear in the arena is the rotting plague spider. His strength and power begin to tear blocks of stone to shreds, so much so that it attracts the attention of a girl who was already far away from the place where she last met Lee Chong-zang. The size of the rotting plague spider is very impressive and terrifies the girl, throwing her off her feet. It is this monster that Lee Chan will have to confront. From the effects created by either the movement or the energy generated, Lee Chan covers his face with his hand, and at that moment, his gaze changes to a bright light, a sign of his supernatural power, and his eyes change into eyes with snake-like pupils. But in addition to the plague spider, he is accompanied by a huge number of zombies, and if you look closely, There's an unimaginable crowd of them, and they're attached to something. Something is the front paw of the plague monster, studded with zombies from beginning to end. The plague spider begins to make movements in preparation for an attack. Once again, the jet of air almost blows Li Changzong away as he tries to stay on his feet. Then, quite timely, a certain deity snake coiling the world gives Li Chang's the skill of snake eyes that will help him orient his thinking over the actions. If that's the case, then Li Changzong should show what he can do. He has to prove to the deity who he is, and who he really is, and it is necessary to act immediately without wasting a minute. Therefore, Li Changzong activates the weak poison resistance skill, and since the skill of weak resistance to poison is improved, the poison caught in the body is destroyed by the accumulated fire energy. The achievement obtained is now 666 fireballs, plus 5 to stamina and fire characteristic enhancement. With this advantage, Li Changzong rushes towards the rotting plague spider, and as he leaps, he's about to strike at the paw that the zombies burrowed into. Swinging his dagger around, Li Changzong slashes the claw of the huge monster. The first blow of pain to the rotting plague spider is struck, but in order to be able to ignite the flames of the 8 trigrams, Li Changzong would need a binding fuel. For these purposes, the ideal solution will be a poison whose action will have the best effect. But in order not to miss with the choice of poison, it must be the best, and perhaps the best solution is the venom found in the venom glands of the plague spider. These glands on the spider's body are numerous, but you have to choose the right place to strike, and that place is right next to the heart. Without thinking long, Li Changzong makes a leap onto the monster's back and strikes with a dagger to reach his intended target. But you have to remember that the bite of a rotting plague spider is very strong, so you may not get a second chance. Li Changzong soon starts to notice that the zombies' heads begin spewing green orbs, which then turn to liquid and start gushing in all directions. It's a small matter for Li Changzong to not get hit, and he manages to jump back. As it turns out, the glands contain not poison but acid, and what Li Changzong achieved in 3 days is not enough. Therefore, it is necessary to find a way out of the current situation, and the first step is to be able to escape from the spider monster. Li Changzong is leaving the confrontation field. Meanwhile, young Jun Jae continues his search for the big boss, and together with the players accompanying him, gets into a clearing full of zombies. But to his deep disappointment, they have already been sent to the other side of the world. It's impossible, and it just can't be Lian again. Turning to the system window again, Zhang Chun-jae notices that his rating has slightly increased compared to Li Changzong, and the deity that protects him begins to warn young Chun-jae of trouble if he doesn't live up to his trust. This is the last chance the deity will give young Jun-jae, therefore, one should make every effort to get the deity interested again. No matter what paths his opponent takes, young Jun-jae finds out that Li Chang's is currently confronting a plague spider. This is already becoming the last straw in young Jun-jae's patience. He can't let it go this time, so he has to hurry up. Meanwhile, Li Changzong comes up with an idea to trap the spider. Naturally, his enemy is irritated and in an unstable state, and then Li Changzong remembers the last goodbye to the girl who happily reports the job done and her happy, trusting face eager for the next orders. But he has to run. To realize the plan, Li Changzong is coming up with, and the rotting plague spider, unsuspecting Li Chang's, continues to stalk Li Chang's and finally falls into the trap so skillfully designed and disguised by Li Chang's. Everything turns out exactly as Li Changzong planned. His trap succeeded. The next step is activating the explosion rune, which works as intended. A huge column of fire blasts outward from where the spider hit. Yes, it works, and the rotting plague spider is perfectly amenable to fire. Finally, a rune of penetration is activated that pierces through the monster's flesh. It looks funny, and the deity snake coiling the world is pretty much how the spider got trapped. Li Changzong once again adds to his bank of achievements by getting the mouse in the trap, new skill, weak trap, and plus 5 intelligence as a reward. And that's just the beginning. He's not going to stop there. However, Li Changzong was wrong when he thought he was done with the spider. The rotting plague spider is diligently grasping for life, and he's not the only one still trying to get to his enemy, following Li Sung with one of his many eyes but having a certain significance. The hero has nothing left to do but go back and finish what he started. Most likely, the rotting plague spider is the final boss since you can't just do away with it. Li Changzong has no choice but to cut the rope he uses to escape and jump down to the monster to deliver his decisive blow, which just happens to fall into one of the leading holes. Realizing his defeat, the bleeding rotting plague spider tries to turn to flee. Having figured him out, Li Changzong decides to thwart his plan by catching up with the weakened, plague-ridden, rotting creature and swinging from above, delivering a series of decisive blows to him with his dagger. The blows follow one after another, and finally, finally finish off the weakened spider. The spider will finally be finished soon, and he's going to the other side of the world to his buddies. At this time, young Chunji and his entourage of servants arrive at the scene of Li Chang-tsung's fight with the plague-rotting spider. Young Jun-jae is horrified to see this outcome, and he doesn't expect to be late to the event. Once again, he loses and succumbs to his blood enemy, Li Chang-tsung. Looking from the side, Jang Chun-jae sees the scarred carcass of a huge spider on its deathbed. But if they come forward now and reveal themselves, there's a chance they won't survive. It's better to leave this dirty business to Li Chang-tsung and wait until the two warring parties are completely exhausted. We'll just have to bide our time, it'll all be over soon. Then we can show ourselves, and it's better if Young Jun-jae acts stealthily. For that, we need a plan of action, and without thinking long, Young Chun-jae comes up with the perfect idea to strike Li Chang's while distracting him. If he targets Li Chang-tsung with players who are willing to do anything for him because of the mark, then Jang Chun-jae's chances will increase. Considering that Li Chang's does not want and avoids casualties among ordinary people, the task at hand will be easy. But there are risks involved, so Young Jun-jae needs a hostage to manipulate Li Chang-tsung, and for this role, the girl running away below is perfect. But Young Jun-jae thinks she's long gone. A Juicy, that's her name, she's a good counterpart, and it's the perfect opportunity for luck to finally be on Young Jun-jae's side, and he needs to use it right. Meanwhile, the unsuspecting Li Chang's continues to throw a series of punches. He skillfully and accurately dagger slashes the huge body of the rotting spider, destroying zombies time after time, avoiding their bites, and reaching the cherished eye. Soon, it would be over, and Li Chang's, after a successful series of blows, finally stabs his dagger, which becomes critical and the last for the spider. Finally, the plague of the decomposing spider is over once and for all. The hero successfully completes the mission and brings the monster's condition to a critical state, eventually sending the monster to the other side of the world with no right to return. Having gotten to what Li Chang-tsung has been striving for so long, he finally has it in his hands. He is a true winner who deserves the award of giving Li Chang's more opportunities, and without wasting any time, Li Chang-tsung absorbs it to gain new powers. After taking a sip of it, Li Chang-tsung starts to feel a change, which indicates he's moving to a new 20th level of play, meaning Li Chang-tsung is finishing the 5th and final stage that is needed for the dungeon recovery task. His abilities cause many gods to take an interest in Li Chang-tsung. That worries the snake that coils around the world, which first showed interest in him. Just at this moment, thinking that Li Chang-tsung is weakened, Jang Jun-jae decides to take action. It's likely that after losing his strength against the monster, Li Chang-tsung is so exhausted that he can't stand up. This means that right now, Jang Jun-jae is directing his players to turn on Li Chang-tsung, and while the players are attacking Li Chang-tsung, Jang Chun-jae will hide among them to strike. But what Young Chun-jae sees when he looks at Li Chang's is perplexing. It's even more likely to wonder why Li Chang's mouth is spreading into a smile. In fact, Li Chang's is not even smiling but already laughing. What's even going on, and what can make Li Chang's laugh so hard? There's sure to be an upcoming fun event that makes Li Chang laugh so hard because Young Chun-jae and his entire entourage of subjects are trapped in a trap without ever reaching Li Chang. This realization strikes fear into Young Chun-jae, who doesn't even know what it all means. Li Chang, who is still excited about what's going on, continues to mock because Young Chun-jae and everyone else with him got it wrong without noticing he messed up somewhere and made a mistake. But Young Chun-jae doesn't give up his attempt to attack Li Chang and sends the player escorts to deal with him. Naturally, Li Chang is ready for this and accepts this challenge even though he's facing ordinary people. They've been ordered to destroy him, and with the ease of his dagger, Li Chang sends his abusers to the other side, who are under Young Chun-jae's command and continue to try to restrain Li Chang. So now Li Chang has to go on a quest called Escape from the Trap. And it's more than interesting. The challenge is accepted, time to act. Li Chang clears a path of human bodies to get to his enemy. There's not much left, and Li Chang's goal will be accomplished. Finally, he gets to Young Chun for a strike, and the confrontation between the two sides begins as their blades converge at the same point. But what happens next is not what Young Chun-jae expects, and he's not quite ready for it. Once again, luck is on Li Chang's side. Young Chun-jae is weaker than him, and this weakness causes him to be wounded in his right hand, holding the dagger. Yes, it means that fortune is once again favoring Li Chang, who defeated his enemy by taking away his working limb. Naturally, Young Chun must do something to avoid losing his life, and after avoiding another blow from Li Chang, Young Chun flees while hiding behind the backs of his fellow players. They are ordered to stop Li Chang, but for Li Chang, it's just a warm-up, and he will stop at nothing, even for the common people. Li Chang is strong enough, and to defeat him, Young Chun will need more strength. In order to do that, he needs to send more victims to the other side. Meanwhile, the lieutenant is standing on a rock, watching a picture that is painfully familiar to him. He's been down this path before, and now the gods have chosen Li Chang, while Young Chun Jae plays a minor role in this game, only needed to train Li Chang. It was like that last time, and the terrible events begin to resurface in the lieutenant's memory. Young Chun Jae keeps sending players to the other world to get their life force to become stronger, but what happens when the mark on your arm stops working? Meanwhile, Li Chang is about to strike Young Chun Jae after overcoming obstacles. He's close enough for Young Chun to react, and yes, Li Chang is quite strong. Unlike Young Chun Jae, he is far superior in strength and ability. Unable to cope with the pressure and the fact that his working arm is damaged, Young Chun Jae gets hit on his healthy arm. There is no doubt that Li Chang is once again the winner, and he will reach the end without getting proper resistance. With a swing, Li Chang strikes again, taking away Young Chun Jae's left arm. Now Young Chun Jae has both his arms immobilized, and one of them is missing. In the meantime, the vitality from the defeated players is draining away, but they're not going to Young Chun Jae like before, they're going past him. It's his only source of extra strength. To Young Chun Jae's surprise, they pass to his enemy Li Chang. For reasons unknown, this causes Young Chun Jae to be perplexed and afraid because he doesn't understand why this is happening. Meanwhile, Li Chang is starting to remember where he heard that name before, Young Chun Jae. An insight finally starts to come to Li Chang. He tries to remember where he's encountered him before, and Young Chun Jae is sure that Li Chang remembers him because Young Chun Jae knows so much about him. But unfortunately, no matter how hard Li Chang tries, he can't think of anything. This realization, and the fact that Li Chang doesn't remember Young Chun Jae, makes the latter cringe. How can Li Chang not remember him? Because he got Young Chun Jae kicked out of the BP Cyber Sports Club. Finally, it's clues like this that make Li Chang come to mind. He finally remembered what their last meeting was like, Young Chun Jae humiliating himself in front of Li Chang, and in tears, grasping at a last-ditch effort to keep him at the club. If that guy is Young Chun Jae, he's just as disgusted with Young Chun as he was before, and just like then, Li Chang has no pity, only disgust. But being in a bad position, Young Chun Jae is the last thing he wants to hear. Using his last strength, he aims his blade at Li Chang to strike, but this picture is no longer of any interest to Li Chang, nor is the deity who patronized Young Chun Jae. No longer can Young Chun Jae wait for help from his patron. His last hour has come. He begins to realize that he is playing the role of an extra, and only that. Everything that was before is self-deception. He loses again to none other than his worst enemy, Li Chang, and Young Chun Jae knows what's next for him. And it's something that makes him even more afraid. In the meantime, moments of memories from his past life, of shame and humiliation that he endured, begin to flicker through his brain. Here is the winner of the competition, Le Chang Song, surrounded by fans, while Young Chun Jae has to stand in the shadows and just watch. Le Chang Song is on the podium, and he's raising the winner's trophy, while Young Chun Jae is just envious. If envy and the desire for revenge hadn't consumed him, then perhaps Young Chun Jae wouldn't have gotten stuck in the gate following the offender. What happened to Young Chun Jae is now a matter of one man's fault, and that person is Le Chang Song. Now Young Chun Jae is going to be punished for it. He failed to live up to the deity's expectations, and now he's going to the next world. Young Jun's story ends, and since that's the case, according to the sealed contract, Young Jae's life energy will be transferred to the owner. As if by the wave of a wand, energy begins to erupt from Young Chun Jae's body, but there's so much of it that the energy reserves are becoming overflowing, and it will take some time for Le Chang Song, as the new owner, to fully absorb it. What was the surprise of the surviving players when they saw Le Chang Song absorb it? A new rune appears on Le Chang Song's neck through which the power is transferred to him. But realizing that he's in danger, Le Chang Song modifies the owl brand that is on the hand of the girl who found his patronage. These changes result in a new mark appearing next to the owl, indicating that it is owned by Young Chun Jae. Fearing that the girl may not be able to withstand the energy, Le Chang Song puts the rune of transition on her hand, thanks to which all the power will be transferred to him. But such an act disturbs the deity patronizing Le Chang Song because the incoming energy is different from his energy, which means he has to be very careful with it, as greed will not lead to anything good. Meanwhile, Le Chang Song continues to absorb energy without paying attention to the warning. Yes, he guesses that he's being tested, and this test amuses a certain constellation that has not yet revealed itself to Le Chang Song and wants to gift him something. Suddenly, something unthinkable begins to happen. Life energy begins to emanate from the hands of the remaining players. The life energy sends them to the other world, and that is the gift the constellation speaks of. That's probably not what Le Chongsong wants as a gift from the constellation. Now, Le Chongsong is faced with the choice of continuing to grow stronger or stopping this madness. Yes, that's exactly what happened last time, and the lieutenant remembers a similar picture as clearly as what he sees now. If Le Chongsong didn't live up to their expectations, they would have all been sent to the other side by now. That look is a familiar look that means nothing, and those lifeless eyes will surely take the life out of all the players. Of course, Le Chongsong will not refuse the gift that God has given him, as Le Chongsong's hand suddenly waits on the no button in the system window. He makes his choice to interrupt the countdown and stop the bullying, which perplexes the deity. But Le Chongsong doesn't try to trust those who are hiding upstairs without even revealing their names. Not thinking long, before he didn't know his name was unknown, he decides to reveal his name. It's Mephistopheles, the demon stalking the abyss. To his disappointment, Le Chongsong doesn't know this deity. He was only attracted by the word demon in the sacred name. However, Mephistopheles is a deity who is superior in status to Tiamat and is one of the most terrifying creatures who prefers solitude. This deity is eager to know the reason why Le Chongsong is making this decision, but the constellation blessed with hunting season, in turn, demands that demon stop pressuring Le Chongsong, who is his property. This clash between PG and Mephistopheles could play a significant role in Le Chongsong's favor, as it suddenly becomes known that the dungeon is about to close. The countdown is on. But there is still his familiar girl who has found his protection and patronage. However, the captivity rune that Le Chongsong had placed on the girl's arm played in the right direction and attracted the target's attention. The girl is trying her best to get to Le Chongsong to find out how she can reach him. Meanwhile, Le Chongsong stands in front of the dungeon and throws her a knife as a farewell. Not thinking long, the girl easily catches it, but that's not all. She can get rid of the seal completely if she arrives at the address on the hilt of this knife, because Le Chongsong doesn't have that kind of power and competence. And it's time to say goodbye. Leaving the girl behind, Le Chongsong leaves the dungeon without her, and the dungeon closes its doors. All players have accomplished their mission. A flash of light and voices all around bring the girl to her senses. Now she is not in a dungeon, but in the city on the street, with reporters' cameras pointed at her. Among her kind, she's fine, and the dungeon she was in has been cleaned up with just one person's help. Suddenly, among the crowd, the girl sees her own mom and dad running towards her. Yes, she survived, and now she can hug them. One of the few who made it out of the dungeon, but then what happened to Ajasi? Where is he now? Probably among the crowd. The student tries to find him among the crowd of people looking for him among the rescued, but to her regret, among the vast number of faces, she does not see him. That familiar face, who has done so much for her, their meeting from the exit to the dungeon was their last, and all that was left of him was a knife with his address stamped on the handle. Meanwhile, Le Chongsong, sitting on the bridge, is finally calm, and he's back home. He doesn't even care that Mephistopheles keeps waiting for an answer from him, while the serpent that coils around the world teases him even so.